Have you ever been in a relationship where you were so hot for each other in the beginning and you couldn't wait to rip each other's clothes off? Then, after the newness wears off, after a few dates or a few months, the sex started to feel ho-hum and maybe you wondered, is this all there is? Why can't our initial intensity be sustained? I don't want to have this bland, low-energy sex for the rest of my life. I don't want a lifetime of going like through the motions during sex. And I don't want to end up in one of those sexless marriages. What do I have to do to build intimacy for intense sex and orgasms that can be sustainable for the long term? So in this video on intimacy building for intense sex and orgasms, I will cover the 3 secrets to long-term desire and passion. I help you climax in love with a nourishing relationship full of intimacy, passion, and intense sex. If you're new to my videos, here's a little background on me. So after my divorce, I accidentally became a spiritual teacher and healer as a result of my passionate desire to live the ultimate warrior goddess partnership filled with multi-dimensional intimacy, spiritually, intellectually, emotionally, and physically. So I've been living the path and uncovering the secrets to vulnerability and fierce intimacy through the lens of the powerful evidence-based internal family systems self-leadership and healing model that was developed by Dr. Richard Schwartz. This IFS framework gave me the tools for revealing and healing the most vulnerable parts of me and the emotions that I held. And I also work with clients to do the same to help them heal and share. Today's video goes into the specifics of the 3 secrets that will create intense sexual experiences. But before diving into these secrets, we must review the foundational concepts on what intimacy building is and what intense sex is. I'm going to oversimplify the range of sexual experiences here for a moment into the 3 levels to help you understand what I mean by intense sexual experiences. First, there is the sex that is just to get off, where sexual release through orgasms is the main goal. We do this when we masturbate or when we have a one-night stand, and even in long-term relationship where we've lost the spark and the connection with our partner and sex just becomes perfunctory. Then there's the sex that is loving and sweet, where there is real connection and perhaps plenty of orgasms, though the orgasms itself may not be the main objective, and connection is the main objective. So connection and closeness is also how we feel at the beginning of the relationship, and some of that sex can be really hot. Then there's this other level of sex that is on another dimension of intensity that can bring you to tears with intense full body multiple orgasms. This kind of sex is rare. In this heightened state of intimacy, you feel oneness with yourself, oneness with your partner, and oneness with the universe. This is spiritual soul-to-soul sex, which I've talked about in a couple of previous videos. The links are below. So let's start understanding intimacy. Intimacy is into-me-see. This means revealing yourself and to your partner all the parts within, the good and the good parts, the parts that you want to show the world. And it also includes the ugly and negative parts you would rather not share or look at. Examples of negative parts are the midnight closet eater part, the part that was sexually or emotionally abused, perhaps shame about sexual fetishes. Perhaps there are mental health struggles. These extreme parts developed as a result of childhood traumas, and these negative thoughts, habits, and behaviors and coping mechanisms can be unburdened through the internal family system healing sessions. You can watch a real IFS session in the link below. This is where I help a woman overcome her don't trust men protector. In future videos, I will cover the IFS unburdening process. You could read about how I overcame the shame of growing up Asian in America. And you could read about the protective mechanisms I developed as a result of that shame. It's all in my CLIMAX book. So, intimacy building is all about sharing the deepest parts of you with your partner, especially the childhood wounds that contributed to the development of your personality and the coping mechanisms you acquired in order to soothe your wounds. It is difficult to be confidently raw and vulnerable with your partner if you haven't done the inner work. Understand and heal your inner world. On the flip side, it's also going to be difficult for the partner to receive your vulnerabilities and not flip out if they have not done the work. So it's also important for them to do the work. So I share from the deepest part of me with my vulnerabilities. And I share all of these wounded inner child parts of me when I come into relationship. Now, as for what intense sex is, it is sex that is full of energy, where the couple is polarized into extreme masculine and feminine energies, and much of the intensity comes from the exchange of this energy between you and your partner. If you've read the books or seen the movie series 50 Shades of Grey, the relationship between Christian Grey and Anastasia Steele shows extreme and intense polarization of the masculine and feminine, where one person is dominant and leading, and the other person is submissive and in full surrender. While it's useful as a very visual example of polarity, don't worry if the BDSM relationship in 50 Shades of Grey is not your cup of tea. There are plenty of other ways to achieve this kind of polarity. The takeaway message here is that polarity is important to generate sexual energy, regardless of the gender. The masculine side is about leading and giving, and the feminine side is about following and receiving. I have other videos on creating polarity, and the links to those videos are in the description box. So books and videos can help to illustrate the trust and vulnerability it takes to achieve a deeper sense of connection and closeness, which is then reflected in the high levels of sexual intensity. In heteronormative relationships, one aspect of full surrender is about the feminine releasing intense orgasms through vocalizing loudly and showing pleasure through the body's visible response to stimulation. For the man, full surrender with intense energy is about vocalizing and showing his orgasmic release. A man's #1 fulfillment in sex is witnessing the woman's full surrender into insane pleasure through the intensity of how she moves her body and the depth of her moans and screams. For a sovereign man, her surrender allows him to give her out-of-this-world orgasms, the intensity of which validates his masculinity and makes him feel 10 feet tall. He witnesses how successful he is in leading her through erotic pleasure and multiple orgasms and making her visibly ecstatic through the pleasure he gives her. So it really confirms his masculinity. I am a man. His ability to give his woman such intense pleasure and the validation and confidence that comes with it, it raises the intensity for him. When he surrenders into his orgasm, he is still giving. In this case, he is giving his sperm to her. Witnessing his orgasm and feeling his release inside of her further heightens the pleasure for the woman because her #1 turn on is to be the turn on. His surrender validates the power of her femininity to turn him on and make him come. In the heteronormative relationship, most women have the deep desire to be claimed, cherished, and fucked wide open by her man. When he feels that she trusts his leadership, like Anastasia did in 50 Shades of Grey, she's telling him that all of his parts are accepted and that she feels safe to be vulnerably surrendering her body to him. This trust is so healing for him since men have wounded inner child parts that make them question, am I attractive as a mate? Am I a good enough lover? Do I have what it takes to claim this woman? Sex has the power to heal the deepest layers of big and little wounds of the inner child parts when we trust each other with our secret negative parts. This allows us to explore and expand the edges of our sexual comfort zone, which in turn creates still higher levels of intimacy and intensity and bonds us even more strongly with each other. So I would love for you to post in the comments on what you thought about the 50 Shades of Grey books or movies. The books and movies would not have been very popular if women didn't have a secret fantasy of fully surrendering and being claimed and ravished. Women want men to step up and be a sexual warrior to make her feel emotionally and physically safe so she can fully surrender into her feminine ecstatic pleasure through her body. As a woman, I share this female fantasy. So here's a caveat. Great sex is not about achieving orgasms per se. It's about staying in the present moment to allow whatever wants to flow through you, including the part of you that doesn't want to orgasm. Yeah. You can still have intense sexual experiences that don't lead to orgasms. Emotional closeness and intensity can come from after-sex pillow talk, where you share the part of you that wouldn't let you surrender into ecstasy, and how that's related to your inner child parts and their respective fears. In the CLIMAX book, the protagonist had protective parts that didn't want him to surrender into orgasm due to fear of loss of control. In the book, you're going to see how I take him through the internal family systems protocol to get to the root causes of why orgasmic surrender was hard for him. And then it also covers the power trip he felt from holding back his cum. If you're curious about how I've built intimacy really quickly with people I've dated and in my current relationship, you should listen to the voice note that I shared at the beginning of this budding relationship. This voice note propelled Steve and I to go down this path of building fierce intimacy pretty quickly. The raw voice note is in the video, Vulnerability, Psychology, and Sexual Attraction to Make Them Want You More. The link to the video is in the cards and also in the description box. Now that I've defined intimacy building and what intense sex is, let's cover the 3 secrets to intimacy building for intense sex and orgasms. Again, I am sharing this from the heteronormative perspective, where the man likes to take the lead and when the woman likes to surrender into his lead. So the first secret is connection and closeness. The freedom to come or climax is based on comfort and trust, which comes from emotional intimacy, fearless and radical honesty, including any judgments and fears you have about yourself and the other person. One of the main reasons why sex is so important is that we want to feel close and to feel seen for all that we are, including our warts. We go into a relationship with a desire to re-experience unconditional parental love, like we had or wish we had as children. The desire to be loved unconditionally is a basic and universal human need. Those of us who didn't experience unconditional love in childhood will seek and value this kind of connection and closeness and acceptance with a partner really, really badly. But we cannot go into love from that needy place. In my journey with Steve that I've shared in my previous 2 videos, we share the internal family systems vocabulary because he's done 6 years of IFS work. And this framework allowed us to quickly and comfortably get down into the depth of sharing the childhood wounds as soon as our second date. We built connection, trust, and respect and closeness organically and very quickly because we have previously explored our own internal parts and understood that any one part does not define us. Self-awareness allowed us to openly share our most vulnerable and tender parts. We knew and know how to hold space and not judge anything the other person said, and that they would not judge us either. This included revealing to Steve how my perfectionist part wanted to judge certain aspects of him. He didn't get defensive or let his parts get triggered. Instead, he held space for this part of me and listened with empathy and a loving heart. The years of respective inner journey work allowed each of us to go to places we have rarely gone before with another person. This is why the intimacy we built went at lightning speed. Whether you decide to jump into bed together on the 3rd date or wait until the 8th date, the sense of physical closeness you feel is amplified when you can achieve real vulnerability and radical honesty and transparency with your partner. It's not easy to confidently go into deep places until you embark on the journey to peel back and shed the masks you've worn, and you have to understand the strategies that you have carefully erected over the many years of just protecting yourself, all to protect those tender and wounded parts. So if you want intimacy, closeness, and connection and pleasure that grows deeper and deeper, it is important for both of you to embark on the journey to get to know your interior world. When you do the work to understand and love all your parts and can maintain self-leadership, when your internal protectors are triggered, this is when you are ready to be confidently vulnerable with a partner who is similarly self-aware. If you're a man watching this and you have a voice that says, real men don't do therapy or have emotions, therapy is for weak men, you're in good company. Our society has failed our men, most of all, with these false notions of masculinity. I encourage you to honor that part that is scared to do the work. These voices are scared of what you may find in the hidden recesses of that inner closet. Steve, my special guy, is a left-brain alpha male who decided in midlife that it was time to clear out the cobwebs of his past so that he didn't repeat bad relationship patterns again and again. If you want to stop the bad patterns, it is very important to embark on clearing out the ghosts in your inner closet. It takes courage and a real commitment to take this self-awareness and healing journey, but the rewards are more than worth it. The healing will allow you to become the truly sovereign male that every sovereign woman is searching for. Becoming sovereign will allow you to participate in the vulnerability connection and intimacy dance that will lead to lifelong passion and a whole new level of intense sex and orgasms. If you're a woman watching this and you have a voice that says, I'm fine just the way I am, I've locked up my traumas and that's where they belong, please honor that voice. Your voice is afraid of something if you do revisit the hurts again. The Internal Family Systems Framework will help you get to know the outermost layers of fear of change and fear of revisiting the past. You can watch the video of a real IFS healing session on how I took a client to get to know that don't trust men part. The link is below. 6 months after this session with this client, she manifested her dream partner. And now, what I'm doing is working with her husband, who has his childhood parts activated by her bright sovereign light. So both people have to do the healing if you want a great relationship. His IFS sessions are being recorded and will eventually be uploaded on YouTube so that you could see the work that is needed to be done in order to become a sovereign warrior who can lead his goddess well. The beauty of the Internal Family Systems healing model is that it safely takes you into your inner world one layer at a time. So check out my CLIMAX in Love courses. One is for men and the other is for women. This online course will start you on the journey to getting to know your inner landscape via the IFS model so you can intimately share who you really are without your masks. The link to the courses are in the description box. Therefore, the confidence to share every thought and feeling builds intimacy and leads to intense sex and orgasms. The journey starts with self-awareness and doing the work so you can gain the courage to connect at the deepest levels in dating and long-term relationships. And now, for the second secret to intimacy building for intense sex and orgasms. This secret is foreplay. Foreplay starts long before the clothes come off, and even before you are alone together, through flirtatious and sexy messages and suggestive conversations. Once you're alone, this means foreplay with lots of teasing and quote-unquote control as the clothes get peeled off, where the man controls when pleasure happens, so that gratification is deferred and driving the woman's energy and sexual intensity through the roof. And guys, women are not wired like you where we can drop everything just to have sex. Once in a while, we could do that. But sex for sex's sake is not easy for us because we need to feel emotionally connected. It's just how we are wired. There's a saying that foreplay begins after the last orgasm. And it's true. Women's number one need is to feel safe, not only physically, but emotionally. If she feels safe emotionally and feels close through ongoing vulnerability and radical honesty, it's so much easier for her to surrender into sex and let your teasing drive her crazy. If she doesn't feel safe, your teasing may just fall flat. This is really a two-way dance. It's important for the man to take care of the woman emotionally first. For example, by paying attention and listening to what's going on with her, where she is emotionally, by bearing witness to her thoughts and concerns with loving compassion, and without trying to fix her, unless she asks you for a fix. And guys, if you can engage with her emotionally, then she will be more than happy to surrender into your leadership and your foreplay and be an eager partner in the frequent sex that you so much want. And for women, a big component of foreplay is emotional connection, closeness, and safety. This means when she feels safe without lingering resentments, it's much easier for her to receive and follow his leadership of teasing her until she can't stand it anymore. Trust me, I've had this personal experience and how emotional connection and safety built crazy sexual tension. So let's imagine what this might look like. While she's cooking, he caresses her by lightly running his fingers up and down the tender inside of her arm. She smiles, and he gathers her hair and pulls it gently to the side to softly kiss the nape of her neck, listening to her response. Maybe a gasp or a giggle or a deep He then casually brushes her nipples lightly through her top with his fingertips and lingering there. And again, listening for signals on how she is receiving this sensual attention and practicing the foreplay appropriately. Maybe she's wearing a skirt or dress that allows him to reach down and brush the backs of her knees and then slowly bringing his caressing fingers up her inner thighs and at the same time watching for her response and readiness for him to tease her more. He might say in a sexy tone, "You look so hot and sexy there at the stove, whipping up another delicious meal for us. I can't wait to show you how much I adore and appreciate you for taking care of my hungry belly." This is an example of foreplay that moves sexual energy way before they hit the bed. And guys, this also means that when you're teasing her with foreplay, please refrain from going directly to her pussy. After some initial teasing, you can gently graze your fingers near or even across her mound or lips. This is really hot. She likes to be teased until she can't take it anymore, where she says, "You're driving me crazy. Will you please just take me now?" So the 50 Shades of Grey books and the movies are all about anticipation and what that does for female arousal. Foreplay with lots of teasing is about polarizing the masculine feminine energies into the dominance-submission dynamic, with or without using props, such as handcuffs or blindfolds. He can even raise her arms to pin her down and ask her to pretend that she has handcuffs on, or ask her to close her eyes to heighten every sensation, not knowing where he's gonna touch her next. Female surrender like this creates intensity and can lead to crazy multi-orgasmic pleasure. And ladies, our bodies are designed for multi-orgasmic pleasure. If you feel stuck in this department, more than likely this is due to an inner child part or parts that are afraid to let you surrender into ecstatic pleasure. If you want to overcome these protectors, it is important to embark on the inner work journey. And I found that with my clients that the internal family systems healing model is an excellent place to start this kind of healing and self-awareness journey. So on to the third secret to intimacy building for intense sex and orgasms. And this third secret is experiment and mix things up to push your boundaries so that you can come under different sources of stimulation, fantasy scenarios, and different rooms and places. In order to have great sex, you need to feel comfortable with talking about sex in and out of the bedroom. If you're squeamish about talking about sex, then that means there's a part of you that is stuck in the past with negative messages programmed into you, such as, sex is dirty, sex is not safe, I shouldn't enjoy sex, only sluts talk about sex, etc. Your fears about talking about sex and sexual fantasies are valid. You must make friends with these fears and hear what they are afraid of if you were to talk about sex, going beyond your usual sexual boundaries and acting out and your fantasies. Because if you're afraid to do any of this stuff, it's coming from fear. Again, the internal family systems model is a great framework for getting to know these scared parts so you could heal and unburden them. When you know the stories behind your fears, it's so much easier to talk about them with your partner so they could hold loving space for you. And that's what creates the intimacy. The courage to be vulnerable builds intimacy and safety. Having your scared parts be accepted by your partner is also a way for these fears to diminish. When you have the courage to experiment and mix things up in the bedroom, or expand your ideas about what sex can be by watching loving porn together, or reading erotica, or reading books about sex, this is how you can build emotional intimacy and understand each other's turn-ons. Use your imagination and make it playful. As promised, here's the condensed version of a juicy dialogue I had with Steve, where we went back and forth to build out an erotic scene. We talked about having sex at the infinity pool of our hotel room during a sailing vacation in Greece. We got so silly and laughed our butts off as we imagined asking the front desk woman if it was okay for him to walk around the hotel with his penis hanging out of his underwear. And if it was okay for me to have screaming orgasms at the pool in front of the other guests. Okay, so without making this video X-rated, you get the idea. We went to extremes with building out our fantasies, and it had us laughing like crazy and brought a higher level of energy into our intimacy. So I covered a lot in this video. In summary, the 3 secrets to intimacy building for intense sex and orgasms are: number 1, next level connection and closeness achieved by confidently and vulnerably sharing all parts of you. Number 2, lots of foreplay before the clothes come off and while the clothes are getting peeled off, so that the energy can get polarized into giving and receiving and dominance and submission, the opposite poles that are needed in order for attraction to really magnetize. And number 3, experiment with extending your boundaries with a variety of positions, stimulations, and orifices through sharing your fantasies and acting out different scenarios that turn you on. I hope you found this video inspiring. If you like learning the deep psychology of love and how to build extraordinary multidimensional intimacy, please subscribe, comment, and share this video. I would love to hear in the comments what you think about intimacy building and intense sex. Does this sound doable to you? What's holding you back from next level intimacy? What questions or fears come up as you think about these 3 ways of intimacy building so that it could lead to great, intense sex? Finally, if you want to understand more fully how starting your journey of internal discovery with the internal family systems framework might change your life, then the fictional story in my book, CLIMAX, Why Great Leaders Need Love Affairs, it might be just the thing you need right now. In the book, you'll learn the whys and the hows of inner work through the internal family systems framework, told through the stories of John and Jill. The inner work journey will help you directly manifest your wildest dreams in your career and your love life. I've manifested my wildest dreams by becoming sovereign and confidently vulnerable, and you can too. If you're interested in one-on-one coaching to get unstuck from your relationship challenges, click the link below to explore if working with me is the right fit. Until next time, bye for now.